The first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of apricot and rose, casting long shadows across the quiet streets of Oakhaven. Brother Samuel, a man etched with the wisdom of 80 years, began his day as he had for countless others. His wrinkled hands, gnarled like ancient oak branches, carefully adjusted the worn leather strap of his white cane. The cane, more than just a tool, was an extension of himself, a familiar friend guiding him through the world he couldn't see. But Brother Samuel saw in a different way. He saw with the eyes of his heart, a heart brimming with faith that illuminated his every step. Blind since birth, Brother Samuel possessed a unique connection to the world. He knew the rhythm of Oakhaven streets, the subtle creaks of the old houses, the chirping of birds announcing the new day. His journey to the small, whitewashed church on Elm Street was a daily pilgrimage, a testament to his unwavering devotion. It wasn't just the physical distance he covered. It was a journey of the soul, a reaffirmation of his belief in a higher power. His footsteps, though slow and deliberate, were steady and sure. He moved with a grace that belied his age, his cane tapping a gentle rhythm against the pavement, a silent melody that announced his presence. The residents of Oakhaven knew the sound well. It was a familiar comfort, a gentle reminder of the unwavering faith and kindness that resided within their community. Mrs. Gable, the baker, would leave a warm blueberry muffin on her porch for him, its sweet aroma a welcome addition to his morning walk. Mr. Henderson, the retired postman, would often pause his gardening to offer a friendly greeting, his voice a comforting baritone in the morning stillness. Even the children, their boisterous energy usually unrestrained, would fall silent as Brother Samuel passed, their eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Brother Samuel, in turn, greeted everyone with a warm smile and a kind word. He possessed an uncanny ability to sense the emotions of those around him, his ears attuned to the subtle inflections in their voices, the slightest tremor in their hands. He knew when a comforting word was needed, when a silent prayer was more effective than any spoken counsel. He was a listener, a confidant, a silent guardian of their joys and sorrows. His small church, nestled amongst towering oak trees, was more than just a place of worship. It was a sanctuary, a haven of peace and tranquility. The stained glass windows, depicting biblical scenes, cast kaleidoscopic patterns on the worn wooden floor, creating an ethereal atmosphere. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and incense, a comforting aroma that wrapped around Brother Samuel like a warm embrace. He would spend hours in the church, his fingers tracing the worn grooves of the wooden pews, his lips moving in silent prayer. He would often sit by the window, listening to the sounds of the town, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant hum of traffic, all blending into a harmonious symphony. He found solace in the quiet moments, in the unwavering presence of his faith. He found strength in the knowledge that even in the darkness, there was always a light to guide him. Brother Samuel wasn't just a member of the Oakhaven community. He was its heart, its conscience, its unwavering beacon of hope. His blindness was not a limitation, but a unique perspective, a lens through which he saw the world with a clarity many-sighted individuals lacked. He saw the goodness in people, the potential for redemption, the unwavering power of faith, love, and forgiveness. His daily walk to church was more than just a physical journey. It was a testament to his unwavering faith, a symbol of his profound connection to his community, and a quiet affirmation of the enduring power of the human spirit. His presence was a comfort, his kindness a balm, his faith an inspiration. He was simply put, Brother Samuel, and Oakhaven was a better place because of him. The morning service concluded with a hymn, Brother Samuel's voice a low, resonant hum blending with the choir's harmonious voices. Afterwards, he lingered, offering words of comfort to Mrs. Evans, whose husband had recently passed. He didn't preach or offer platitudes. He simply listened, his presence a silent acknowledgement of her grief, his hand resting gently on hers. His touch, though unspoken, conveyed a depth of empathy that transcended words. Leaving the church, he felt the familiar warmth of the sun on his face, a sensation he savored. He knew the subtle shifts in temperature, the gentle breeze, the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves of the ancient oaks lining Elm Street. These were his sensory maps, guiding him through the world. His first stop was Mrs. Gable's bakery. The aroma of freshly baked bread and pastries filled the air, a comforting scent that always lifted his spirits. Mrs. Gable, a woman whose smile could melt glaciers, presented him with his daily blueberry muffin, its warmth a welcome contrast to the morning chill. He thanked her, his voice filled with genuine gratitude, and felt the familiar crinkle of the paper bag in his hands. He continued his walk, his cane tapping a steady rhythm against the pavement. He stopped at the small park, where he often sat on the bench by the old oak tree. He listened to the children's laughter, their joyous squeals echoing through the air. He could sense their energy, their boundless enthusiasm, and felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He knew the names of most of them, having often shared stories and jokes with them during his visits. Today, young Timmy, known for his mischievous grin, approached him. Timmy's kite had become entangled in the branches of the oak tree. He was clearly distressed, his small face creased with worry. Brother Samuel, sensing the boy's anxiety, gently guided him to the tree. Using his cane with surprising dexterity, he carefully dislodged the kite, his movements precise and deliberate. Timmy's face lit up with joy, his earlier distress replaced with overwhelming gratitude. He thanked Brother Samuel profusely, his small hands clutching the rescued kite. Next, Brother Samuel visited Mr. Henderson, who was struggling to lift a heavy bag of fertilizer. Mr. Henderson, a proud and independent man, initially resisted help, but Brother Samuel's gentle persistence and unwavering kindness won him over. Together, they moved the bag, their combined efforts a testament to their mutual respect and camaraderie. His afternoon was spent visiting Mrs. Johnson, an elderly woman who lived alone. He read to her from her favorite book, his voice a soothing balm to her loneliness. He didn't just read the words. He brought the story to life, his voice inflecting with emotion, his pauses adding emphasis. He could feel her gratitude, her loneliness easing with every word. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant shades of orange and purple, Brother Samuel made his way back towards his small cottage. He had spent the day sharing his kindness, his empathy, his unwavering faith. He hadn't preached or lectured. He had simply been present, offering a listening ear, a helping hand, a comforting presence. He had touched the lives of many, leaving behind a trail of warmth, hope, and gratitude. His actions were a silent testament to his belief in the power of human connection, a testament to the profound impact a single act of kindness could have on a community. And as he walked, the quiet gratitude of Oak Haven enveloped him like a warm blanket, a silent acknowledgement of the profound influence of their beloved Brother Samuel. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, ominous shadows across Oak Haven. The cheerful daytime sounds were replaced by a growing stillness, punctuated only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hum of a car engine. Brother Samuel, his daily tasks completed, began his journey home, his familiar route now imbued with a different atmosphere. The warmth of the day had given way to a chilling evening breeze, carrying with it a subtle shift in the air, a sense of unease that prickled his skin. His cane tapped a steady rhythm against the pavement, the familiar sound a comforting counterpoint to the growing darkness. He could sense the change in the environment, the subtle shift in the energy of the street. The usual friendly greetings were absent, replaced by an unnerving silence. Even the sounds of the town seemed muted, as if holding their breath. He passed Mrs. Gable's bakery, its windows now dark, the inviting aroma of freshly baked bread replaced by the chilling silence of an empty shop. He felt a faint tremor in the air, a subtle vibration that hinted at something amiss. He couldn't quite place it, but the feeling of unease intensified with each step. The park, usually bustling with children's laughter, was deserted. The swings hung motionless, the slides stood silent, the merry-go-round still. An unnatural quiet had settled over the place, a stark contrast to its usual vibrant energy. Brother Samuel paused at the edge of the park, his cane tapping gently against the ground, as if searching for an answer, a reassurance that the unease was merely a figment of his imagination. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing moment. The shadows seemed to lengthen, stretching like grasping fingers, reaching out to him from the darkness. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves of the ancient oak tree, creating a whispering sound that seemed to carry a message he couldn't decipher. The air grew colder, a tangible chill that seeped into his bones, despite the warmth of his coat. He continued his journey, his steps slower now, more cautious. He could feel the weight of the encroaching darkness, the subtle shift in the energy of the street. The familiar comfort of his daily walk had vanished, replaced by a growing sense of apprehension. He knew the streets of Oakhaven like the back of his hand, but tonight, the familiar landmarks seemed alien, distorted by the shadows and the encroaching darkness. The houses, usually warm and inviting, now appeared menacing, their darkened windows like vacant eyes staring into the night. The usual sounds of the town, the distant hum of traffic, the barking of dogs, the laughter of children, were absent, replaced by an unnerving silence, a vacuum that amplified his growing unease. He could feel the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end, a primal instinct warning him of danger. He quickened his pace, his cane tapping a faster rhythm against the pavement, the familiar sound now a desperate plea for reassurance. He was approaching the less-traveled streets, the ones that lay in the shadows, away from the well-lit main thoroughfares. The darkness here was deeper, more profound, a palpable entity that seemed to press in on him from all sides. He could feel the prickle of fear, a cold dread that tightened its grip on his heart. The peaceful evening walk had transformed into a perilous journey, a trek through a landscape of fear and uncertainty. He knew something was wrong, something was about to happen. The familiar comfort of his routine had vanished, replaced by a growing sense of dread. His journey home, once a simple pilgrimage, had become a desperate race against the encroaching darkness. A sudden, harsh voice shattered the night's silence. "Get out of my way, you blind old fool." The words, laced with venom and hate, struck Brother Samuel like a physical blow. He stopped, his cane momentarily still, his senses instantly alert. The voice was rough, gravelly, filled with the unmistakable timbre of anger and prejudice. He tried to discern the speaker's location, his ears straining to pinpoint the source of the hostility. The voice seemed to emanate from the darkness ahead, a shadowy figure looming in the inky blackness. He felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal instinct warning him of danger. His heart pounded in his chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. I didn't see you," Brother Samuel responded, his voice calm despite the tremor in his hands. He tried to maintain his composure, his faith a shield against the rising tide of fear. He knew the streets of Oakhaven intimately, but tonight, the familiar landmarks seemed distorted, the darkness obscuring his perception. "Don't play innocent, old man," the voice snarled. "You're nothing but a burden on society, a drain on our resources. You and your kind." The words trailed off, replaced by a torrent of racial slurs, hateful epithets that stung like icy needles. The darkness seemed to press in on Brother Samuel, the hateful words a tangible force, suffocating him with their venom. Brother Samuel remained silent, his faith a fortress against the onslaught of hatred. He had encountered prejudice before, but never with such raw, unbridled intensity. He felt the weight of the man's anger, the palpable force of his hatred, but he refused to let it consume him. His faith, his unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity, was his only defense. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his shoulder, its grip harsh and unforgiving. Brother Samuel stumbled, his cane falling to the ground with a clatter. He felt a surge of pain, a sharp jolt that sent a wave of dizziness through him. The man's voice, now close, was a guttural growl. "Give me your money, old man. You won't need it where you're going." The man's words were accompanied by a rough shove, sending Brother Samuel sprawling onto the cold, hard pavement. He felt the sharp sting of the concrete against his cheek, the jarring impact sending a wave of pain through his body. He lay there, momentarily stunned, his breath caught in his throat. The man's weight pressed down on him, his hands reaching for his pockets. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Brother Samuel's composure. But beneath the fear, a deeper current flowed, his faith. It was a wellspring of strength, a source of resilience that had sustained him through countless trials. He knew he was vulnerable, physically weak, but his spirit remained unbroken. His faith, his unwavering belief in the power of love and forgiveness, was his only weapon. He knew, deep down, that even in the face of such hatred, there was still hope. The attack, though brutal, would not break him. His spirit, fueled by faith, would prevail. With a surge of adrenaline, Brother Samuel reacted. He might be blind, elderly, and physically frail, but years of navigating the world with his cane had honed his senses, sharpened his instincts. He knew the weight and balance of his cane intimately. It was an extension of himself, a familiar tool he wielded with surprising skill. Before the attacker could fully reach into his pockets, Brother Samuel reacted with a speed and precision that belied his age. With a powerful thrust, he swept his cane upwards, catching the attacker off guard. The cane, wielded with surprising force, struck the man's leg, jarring him with unexpected impact. The attacker stumbled, his balance thrown off by the sudden blow, his weight shifting precariously. Brother Samuel, despite being on the ground, had used his cane not merely as a walking aid, but as a weapon, his movements guided by an uncanny awareness of his surroundings. The attacker yelped in pain and surprise, his momentum momentarily broken. Brother Samuel seized the opportunity, his instincts taking over. He knew the layout of the street, the placement of the curb, the texture of the pavement. He used his cane to leverage himself upwards, his movements fluid and surprisingly agile. He pushed himself away from the attacker, creating distance between them. The attacker, momentarily stunned, struggled to regain his balance. He was a larger man, but his aggression had been met with unexpected resistance. Brother Samuel's defense had been swift, precise, and surprisingly effective. He had used his vulnerability, his blindness, to his advantage, his attacker's expectation of weakness proving to be a fatal miscalculation. Brother Samuel, still on his feet, continued his defense. He didn't strike again, but he used his cane to create a defensive perimeter around himself. He swung it in wide, controlled arcs, keeping the attacker at bay. The cane, in his hands, was no longer just a walking stick. It was a shield, a weapon, a tool of self-preservation. His movements were economical, precise, guided by an intuitive understanding of his surroundings and the attacker's intentions. The attacker, frustrated and disoriented, lunged again, but Brother Samuel anticipated the move. He parried the attack with his cane, deflecting the blow with surprising strength and agility. The cane, wielded with practiced skill, struck the attacker's arm, causing him to stumble backward. The attacker, now clearly off balance, lost his footing and fell heavily to the ground, his body hitting the pavement with a thud. The attacker lay there, groaning in pain, his initial aggression replaced by a stunned silence. He had expected an easy target, a helpless victim. Instead, he had encountered unexpected resistance, a surprising display of strength and resilience. Brother Samuel, despite his blindness and age, had defended himself with remarkable skill and unwavering determination. His faith, his unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity, had given him the strength to overcome the physical disadvantage, turning his vulnerability into an unexpected advantage. His cane, a symbol of his dependence, had become a symbol of his unexpected strength and resilience. The attacker's initial aggression had been met with a force he hadn't anticipated, a force born not of physical might, but of unwavering faith and inner strength. The attacker lay sprawled on the pavement, groaning in pain. His initial anger and aggression had been replaced by a stunned silence, a mixture of shock and disbelief. He had expected an easy target, a helpless victim, someone he could easily intimidate and rob. Instead, he had encountered unexpected resistance, a surprising display of strength and resilience that had left him disoriented and injured. He clutched his arm, a sharp pain shooting through his shoulder. He had landed awkwardly, his weight falling heavily on his arm, the impact jarring his bones. He tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness washed over him, forcing him back down. He gasped in pain, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked up at Brother Samuel, who stood over him, his cane held firmly in his hand. The attacker had expected fear, submission, perhaps even pleading. Instead, he saw a calm, unwavering gaze, a quiet strength that emanated from the elderly man. The attacker had underestimated Brother Samuel, misjudged his character, and now he was paying the price. The attacker's initial anger began to dissipate, replaced by a growing sense of confusion and shame. He had come intending to inflict harm, to unleash his hatred and prejudice. But he had been met with unexpected resistance, a quiet dignity that had shattered his assumptions. He had expected weakness, vulnerability, but he had found strength, resilience, and an unwavering faith that had shaken him to his core. He had expected an easy victory, a quick and effortless act of violence. Instead, he was lying on the cold, hard pavement, his body aching, his pride bruised, his assumptions shattered. The unexpected turn of events had left him disoriented, his initial aggression replaced by a growing sense of unease. He had underestimated Brother Samuel, and now he was paying the price for his arrogance and prejudice. He watched as Brother Samuel slowly lowered himself to the ground, kneeling beside him. The attacker expected a torrent of anger, a demand for retribution. Instead, he heard a gentle voice, a voice filled with compassion and understanding. He felt a hand on his shoulder, a touch that was surprisingly gentle, surprisingly comforting. The attacker's initial shock gave way to a growing sense of confusion. He had expected violence, revenge, but he was met with an unexpected act of compassion. This was not the response he had anticipated, not the reaction he had expected from his victim. The unexpected kindness disarmed him, leaving him vulnerable and exposed. He had come armed with hatred, ready to unleash his anger, but he was met with an unexpected act of forgiveness, a gesture that shook him to his core. He felt a wave of shame wash over him, a crushing weight of guilt and regret. He had allowed his prejudice, his anger, to cloud his judgment. He had acted out of hatred, out of ignorance, and now he was facing the consequences of his actions. He had expected a fight, a confrontation, but he had been met with an unexpected act of compassion that had left him utterly speechless, utterly humbled. The unexpected kindness had disarmed him, leaving him vulnerable and exposed to the full weight of his own actions. He was injured, yes, but the deeper wounds were those of shame and regret. The unexpected resilience of Brother Samuel had not only physically injured him, but had shaken the very foundations of his hateful beliefs. Brother Samuel knelt beside the injured man, his hand resting gently on the attacker's shoulder. The attacker, still winded and shaken, looked up at him, his eyes wide with a mixture of pain, confusion, and dawning shame. He expected anger, retribution, perhaps even a call for the police. Instead, he heard a voice, soft and calm, a voice that spoke of peace and forgiveness. "Let us pray," Brother Samuel said, his voice a gentle murmur in the night. He closed his eyes, his head bowed in prayer, his hands clasped together. The attacker, despite his initial resistance, found himself mirroring Brother Samuel's posture, his own head bowed, his own hands clasped loosely in his lap. The unexpected act of prayer, offered in the midst of such violence, was a profound and disarming gesture. "Dear Lord," Brother Samuel began, his voice filled with unwavering faith, "we come before you tonight, humbled and broken. This man, in his anger and ignorance, has inflicted harm, but we ask for your guidance, your healing touch, not only for his physical wounds, but for the wounds of his spirit." The attacker listened, his heart pounding in his chest. He had expected anger, retribution, but he heard words of compassion, words of understanding, words that spoke of healing and forgiveness. The unexpected kindness was disarming, piercing through his anger and prejudice, exposing the vulnerability beneath. Lord, Brother Samuel continued, we ask for forgiveness for the hatred that fueled this encounter, for the prejudice that clouded his judgment. We ask for your grace to heal the wounds of this man, both physical and spiritual. We ask for your strength to guide him towards a path of understanding, a path of compassion, a path of love. The attacker listened, his hardened heart beginning to soften. The words, though simple, resonated deeply, piercing through the layers of anger and prejudice that had hardened his heart. He felt a wave of shame wash over him, a crushing weight of guilt and regret. He had allowed his hatred to control him, to dictate his actions, and now he was facing the consequences. And Lord, Brother Samuel's voice continued, we ask for your guidance for me, to help me understand the roots of this man's anger, to offer him not judgment but compassion. Help me to show him the power of forgiveness, the transformative power of love. The prayer was a powerful act of faith, a demonstration of unwavering belief in the power of redemption. It was a testament to Brother Samuel's unwavering commitment to compassion, his unwavering faith in the face of adversity. It was a prayer not just for the injured man, but for the entire community, a prayer for healing, for understanding, for unity. As Brother Samuel concluded his prayer, a profound silence descended upon them. The attacker remained motionless, his body still trembling, but his spirit beginning to find solace in the unexpected kindness. He had expected violence, retribution, but he had received something far more profound, a prayer for healing, a prayer for forgiveness, a prayer for unity. The prayer was a powerful act of faith, a demonstration of unwavering belief in the power of redemption, a testament to the transformative power of love and compassion. The unexpected act of kindness had disarmed him, leaving him vulnerable and exposed to the full weight of his own actions, and yet, strangely, filled with a sense of hope. Silence hung heavy in the air after Brother Samuel's prayer, a silence broken only by the attacker's ragged breathing. He lay there, his body aching, his mind reeling from the unexpected turn of events. He had expected a fight, a confrontation, perhaps even a call to the police. Instead, he had received a prayer, an act of compassion that had shaken him to his core. The internal conflict raged within him. The anger that had fueled his attack was still there, a simmering resentment that had been a part of him for so long. But it was now battling with a new emotion, shame. Shame for his actions, shame for his words, shame for the hatred that had consumed him. He had come to this encounter armed with prejudice, fueled by ignorance and fear. He had seen Brother Samuel as a symbol of everything he despised, a target for his anger and frustration. He had allowed his hatred to blind him, to cloud his judgment, to dictate his actions. But now, in the aftermath of his attack, he was confronted with the stark reality of his actions, the consequences of his choices. Brother Samuel's unexpected response had shattered his preconceived notions. He had expected fear, submission, perhaps even pleading. Instead, he had been met with unwavering faith, quiet dignity, and an act of compassion that had left him utterly speechless. The unexpected kindness had disarmed him, leaving him vulnerable and exposed to the full weight of his own actions. He replayed the events in his mind, each moment a searing reminder of his own failings. He remembered the hateful words he had spewed, the violence he had inflicted, the injustice he had perpetrated. He saw himself as he truly was, a man consumed by hatred, a man blinded by prejudice, a man who had allowed his anger to control him. The shame was overwhelming, a crushing weight that pressed down on him, suffocating him with its intensity. He had come seeking to inflict harm, to unleash his anger, but he had been met with an unexpected act of forgiveness, a gesture that had shaken him to his core. He had expected a fight, a confrontation, but he had been met with a prayer that had pierced through his anger and prejudice, exposing the vulnerability beneath. He felt a profound sense of regret, a deep remorse for the pain he had caused. He had hurt an innocent man, a man who had shown him nothing but kindness and compassion. He had acted out of hatred, out of ignorance, and now he was facing the consequences of his actions. The unexpected kindness had disarmed him, leaving him vulnerable and exposed to the full weight of his own actions. He was injured, yes, but the deeper wounds were those of shame and regret. The unexpected resilience of Brother Samuel had not only physically injured him, but had shaken the very foundations of his hateful beliefs. He was left with a profound sense of self-loathing, a deep awareness of his own failings, and a dawning realization of the error of his ways. The seeds of change had been planted, and he knew, deep down, that his life would never be the same. As Brother Samuel helped him to his feet, the attacker felt a profound shift within him. The physical pain was still there, a dull ache in his shoulder and arm, but it was overshadowed by a deeper, more pervasive pain, the pain of guilt and shame. He had acted out of hatred, out of ignorance, and now he was facing the consequences of his actions. The unexpected kindness of Brother Samuel had pierced through his anger and prejudice, exposing the vulnerability beneath. He looked at Brother Samuel, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame and gratitude. He had expected anger, retribution, but he had received compassion, understanding, and a prayer for healing. The unexpected response had shaken him to his core, forcing him to confront the ugliness of his own actions. He walked home in silence, the weight of his guilt pressing down on him. He replayed the events of the evening in his mind, each moment a searing reminder of his own failings. He remembered the hateful words he had spewed, the violence he had inflicted, the injustice he had perpetrated. He saw himself as he truly was, a man consumed by hatred, a man blinded by prejudice, a man who had allowed his anger to control him. The shame was overwhelming, a crushing weight that pressed down on him, suffocating him with its intensity. He had come seeking to inflict harm, to unleash his anger, but he had been met with an unexpected act of forgiveness, a gesture that had shaken him to his core. He had expected a fight, a confrontation, but he had been met with a prayer that had pierced through his anger and prejudice, exposing the vulnerability beneath. He felt a profound sense of regret, a deep remorse for the pain he had caused. He had hurt an innocent man, a man who had shown him nothing but kindness and compassion. He had acted out of hatred, out of ignorance, and now he was facing the consequences of his actions. The unexpected kindness had disarmed him, leaving him vulnerable and exposed to the full weight of his own actions. He spent the night wrestling with his conscience, his mind a battlefield of conflicting emotions. The anger was still there, a simmering resentment that had been a part of him for so long. But it was now battling with a new emotion, remorse. Remorse for his actions, remorse for his words, remorse for the hatred that had consumed him. He saw the error of his ways, the ugliness of his prejudice, the destructive nature of his anger. He knew he couldn't continue down this path, that he needed to make a change. The encounter with Brother Samuel had been a turning point, a moment of profound self-reflection that had forced him to confront the darkness within him. He had been given a second chance, a chance to atone for his actions, a chance to find redemption. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was determined to make amends, to find a way to make peace with himself and with the man he had wronged. He knew he had to seek forgiveness, not just from Brother Samuel, but from himself. The seeds of change had been planted, and he was ready to nurture them, to let them grow into something beautiful and meaningful. His heart, once hardened by hate, was now beginning to soften, opening itself to the possibility of redemption. The decision came slowly, a gradual dawning realization that his actions had been wrong, that he needed to make amends. The shame and regret gnawed at him, a constant reminder of the harm he had caused. He couldn't erase what he had done, but he could try to make things right. He couldn't undo the violence, but he could seek forgiveness. He spent days wrestling with his conscience, his mind a battlefield of conflicting emotions. The anger was still there, a simmering resentment that had been a part of him for so long. But it was now overshadowed by a deeper, more pervasive emotion, remorse. Remorse for his actions, remorse for his words, remorse for the hatred that had consumed him. He knew he had to seek forgiveness, not just from Brother Samuel, but from himself. He had to atone for his actions, to make amends for the harm he had caused. He had to find a way to make peace with his conscience, to find a way to live with himself. The thought of facing Brother Samuel again filled him with trepidation. He knew he didn't deserve forgiveness, but he hoped, perhaps, that Brother Samuel's unwavering faith and compassion might extend to him. He knew he had to try, that he had to take the first step towards redemption. He decided to go to Brother Samuel's church. It was a place of peace, a sanctuary of faith, a haven of hope. He knew it would be difficult, that he might be met with anger or rejection. But he had to try, he had to take the chance. He had to face the consequences of his actions. He arrived at the church early Sunday morning, long before the service began. He stood outside for a long time, hesitant, uncertain, his heart pounding in his chest. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever might come. He knew he didn't deserve forgiveness, but he hoped, perhaps, that Brother Samuel's unwavering faith and compassion might extend to him. He entered the church, the familiar scent of old wood and incense filling his senses. He found a seat in the back, his body tense, his mind racing. He watched as people arrived, their faces reflecting a mixture of peace and serenity. He felt a pang of guilt, a reminder of the violence he had inflicted, the peace he had disrupted. He saw Brother Samuel enter, his familiar cane tapping a gentle rhythm against the floor. Brother Samuel didn't seem to notice him, his eyes closed in prayer. The attacker felt a wave of relief, a sense of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, forgiveness was possible. He watched as Brother Samuel began the service, his voice a soothing balm to the soul. He listened to the words of the gospel, words of hope, words of redemption. He knew he had to make amends, that he had to seek forgiveness. He knew he had to find a way to make peace with himself and with the man he had wronged. He was ready to face the music, ready to accept the consequences of his actions, ready to take the first step towards redemption. The service ended, and the congregation began to disperse. The attacker remained seated, his heart pounding in his chest, unsure of what to expect. He had come seeking forgiveness, but he wasn't sure he deserved it. He had acted out of hatred, out of ignorance, and he knew he had caused pain. Brother Samuel approached him, his cane tapping a gentle rhythm against the floor. The attacker braced himself, expecting anger, rejection, perhaps even a call to the authorities. Instead, he saw a familiar kindness in Brother Samuel's eyes, a compassion that transcended his actions. "I saw you arrive early this morning," Brother Samuel said, his voice soft and gentle. "I've been praying for you." The unexpected words were a balm to the attacker's wounded spirit, a soothing balm to his guilt-ridden soul. I came to ask for forgiveness," the attacker stammered, his voice barely a whisper. He looked down at his hands, ashamed of his actions, ashamed of the hatred that had consumed him. "Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, and a gift we offer to others," Brother Samuel replied. "It's not about erasing the past, but about learning from it, about growing from it, about finding peace within ourselves." Brother Samuel's words were a revelation, a profound insight that resonated deeply within the attacker's soul. He had expected judgment, condemnation, but he had received understanding, compassion, and a path towards healing. He felt a wave of relief wash over him, a sense of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, redemption was possible. Brother Samuel then turned to the congregation, his voice clear and strong. "My brothers and sisters," he said, "this man came to us today seeking forgiveness. He has made a mistake, a grievous one, but he has also shown the courage to seek redemption. Let us embrace him, not with judgment, but with compassion, with understanding, with the love that our Lord teaches us." The congregation responded with a murmur of agreement, a collective sigh of understanding and acceptance. Several members approached the attacker, offering words of comfort, extending hands of friendship. The church community, known for its unwavering faith and compassion, had embraced the attacker, offering him a second chance, a path towards redemption. The attacker felt a wave of emotion wash over him: relief, gratitude, hope. He had expected rejection, condemnation, but he had received acceptance, forgiveness, and a sense of belonging. The church community, a beacon of hope and compassion, had shown him the true meaning of forgiveness, the transformative power of love. He had come seeking redemption, and he had found it in the most unexpected of places, in the heart of a community that had embraced him, not with judgment, but with compassion, with understanding, with the love that their Lord taught them. The act of forgiveness was not just from Brother Samuel, but from the entire congregation, a collective embrace that healed his wounded spirit and gave him hope for a new beginning. The attacker, now a changed man, became a regular at the church. He no longer carried the weight of his past, the burden of his hatred. The shame and regret remained, a constant reminder of his past mistakes, but they were now overshadowed by a profound sense of hope and redemption. He had found peace, not through denial or avoidance, but through acceptance, forgiveness, and a commitment to making amends. He actively participated in the church community, offering his help wherever needed. He volunteered his time, assisting with various tasks, his actions a testament to his newfound commitment to service and compassion. He had found a purpose, a reason to live, a way to atone for his past mistakes. He became a friend to Brother Samuel, their bond strengthened by their shared experience, their mutual commitment to faith and forgiveness. He often accompanied Brother Samuel on his daily walks, his presence a silent testament to his transformation. He learned to see the world through Brother Samuel's eyes, to appreciate the simple joys of life, the beauty of the natural world, the power of human connection. He reached out to others in the community, offering apologies for his past actions. He spoke openly about his transformation, sharing his story with anyone who would listen. His honesty and vulnerability touched many, inspiring others to confront their own prejudices and biases. His story became a testament to the power of forgiveness, a beacon of hope for those who had been victims of hate. It was a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, even in the face of unimaginable cruelty, there is always the possibility of redemption, the potential for healing, the power of love to overcome hate. The community embraced him, not as a symbol of their past mistakes, but as a testament to their capacity for forgiveness, their unwavering commitment to faith and compassion. He was no longer seen as the attacker, but as a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the most hardened hearts can be changed. His transformation had a ripple effect, inspiring others to confront their own prejudices, to challenge their own biases, to embrace the power of forgiveness. The community became even stronger, its bonds deepened by their shared experience, their collective commitment to faith, love, and compassion. Brother Samuel's unwavering faith, his quiet dignity, his unwavering commitment to forgiveness, had not only transformed the attacker's life, but had also strengthened the entire community. The story of the attacker and Brother Samuel became a legend, a testament to the power of faith, the transformative power of love, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It was a story that would be passed down through generations, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, always the possibility of redemption, always the power of love to overcome hate. It was a new beginning, not just for the attacker, but for the entire community. The seeds of change had been planted, and they were flourishing.